It's Jordy from Seven Eagle. I am so happy today to have with us Peter Thomas. Peter is kind enough to join us and offer some advice and some suggestions to our veteran community. Just a little bit about Peter. He was an aviation ordnanceman in the Navy from '68 to '72, and he took over at the helm of his current company, TSI. Do you go by TSI or is it Brandon?
That's right. Yeah, it's TSI now.
TSI, 99. So he's been there a long time, has a ton of experience in the civilian world as a manufacturing representative serving the electronics industry. So I was eager to have Peter on with us because I thought he could bring a whole different perspective to for job seekers. And so, Peter, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking a few minutes. Is there anything, did I get that bio right? Was there anything I missed in there that you want to add?
Actually, I joined the company in 1978 and essentially stayed with them till today. I became, a while back, a partner in the business. We actually sold the business the end of 2015 to a new owner, but I am currently at the very wee end of working for him for 2 years to run the company before I fully retire at the end of the year.
Good. Congratulations.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to.
Yeah. And
that's what
so what suggestions, Peter, would you have for young veteran coming out today? How does he or she decide, you feel, what would be a good career path for me? You know, what were
let me share from my experience. So I was just give you my backstory real quickly and why my military service was so important to me. Smart kid, bad in high school, king of the metal shop, really didn't have a lot of direction, and really through my own fault. And got out of high school, felt I was going to be drafted, and my brother said, who was a Navy vet by that time, said, "Hey, why don't you go in the Navy? It's 1968. You don't want to wind up, in certain places. And this gives you your best chance." So I enlisted, and it was a wonderful experience for me. But the greatest thing I got from it was a perspective on life and where I wanted to go after the military. I was assigned to an aviation squadron, and I worked closely with the pilots, and it occurred to me pretty quickly that the pilots were the cool guys and the enlisted men were the worker bees, right? I liked the cool guys. So what was consistent about them? They had higher education and advanced themselves. So I wound up retaking the SATs on an aircraft carrier and applying for college even before I was discharged, and went right into school. So, I really credit my military experience with helping me get where I am today, and I've been a lot more successful than I ever thought I would be in business. So circling back to what works for me is that I drew on the experience I had in the military, not so much ordnance experience, but electronics experience. And I wound up in the electronics industry. Now, my advice for vets coming out will be to assess what their skills are and what their strengths are. And there's the practical skills that you learn in the Navy by your rating or whatever your job is. You have valuable skills for the workforce and can be employed in a number of different ways. But you also get leadership skills and organizational skills. And I think those are very important. So I found that the general marketplace at the time I left the service was very receptive to veterans, and there was a lot of incentivization going on to hire veterans. And I think to some extent that remains today. But I say go with your strengths. So whatever you did in the service, that provides a basis for you to look at, say, how can I translate this into a civilian career? And whether it's IT training or practical mechanical training or whatever it is. But the thing that you really have to understand when you start to approach employers is that you've received a tremendous amount of leadership training, whether you know it or not. You know how to be self-sufficient. You know how to be responsible, and all the things that are inherent in a good military veteran that through his training in the military, because it's all routine responsibility, and doing what you say and things like that. And I think that's important because as an employer, when I hire people, there's a lot of emotional content in the decisions that I make. And look for veterans too, because veterans like veterans. And I found when I started college, I got some great part-time jobs because I essentially put myself through school on the VA benefits plus what I could earn. I worked for guys who were retired Navy. And, when I got in front of them, I found out what their history was. And I think that's something to keep in mind too, as
That
you.
coincidence, or did you seek them out? Was that coincidence, or you seek them out?
It was somewhat coincidence, but I knew to ask that when I made phone calls and whatnot. This is quite a while ago. But then again, in my position now, and I've hired a couple people within the last year. The thing that candidates sometimes don't realize is that there's a lot of emotional connection that happens in an interview. So the good thing for the veteran, is you've got self-confidence. You know where you've been. You know what you've done. It's been important work. You're very mature. You're organized, and you're capable. And you just have to make sure, don't get intimidated, and don't put that aside. You're a very worthwhile candidate for a lot of reasons that may be outside the scope of what it is that you're going to do. Because employers look for people that can grow within an organization.
Right.
They look for people that they think will be a good investment in their time. And things you can teach, that's one thing. But core personality traits and tendencies and things that you have a proven track record of in terms of responsibility and seriousness and whatnot, I think are very important.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just that foundation. A lot of the guys, the men and women we deal with, they don't realize the incredible training they've had, and they can't foresee that civilian employers are going to really look favorably upon that. But it's got to be packaged correctly, like you said. Share some of your favorite, maybe interviewing tips. Guys come in looking for work. What do you like? What do you don't like to see?
Well, I start with posting an ad and get responses, and I get resumes. So first of all, I look at the resume, and I size up whether the resume looks serious or whether it's not serious or whether it's well constructed. Because, first impressions are very important. So I haven't met anybody, but I have a resume, and to me, that's my first impression of that person. So I'm going to look for someone that spend some time understanding how to do a proper resume. And then once that's done, I look for work history. I look for gaps in history, things that stick out. I like to see something personal about the person, and it can't be too long. I mean, one page is plenty, 2 pages at most. But once you get into the second page, employers really just want a snapshot. Yeah. So it's age, address, contact information, work history, educational history, and also you should tailor your resume for the position that you're seeking. So going back to the comments I made about the training and things that are learned from military service, think about how you can apply them to this position. Okay, so you might put in a section there saying, why you should consider me. Mm-hmm. Yada, yada, yada. I led a platoon of 20 guys. I know how to lead groups. I'm a good manager. I'm a good time manager. I stand deadlines. So I think employers tend to look for things like that. And again, the resume is very important because it's a first step. Now, usually I'll select 3 or 4, and we don't hire a great number of people. It just happens in the last year we needed a few folks. And then I'll ask them to come in. Well, first we'll do a phone interview. I'll talk to the person and, see what they sound like and see if they're consistent with what I read in their resume. After that, we'll set up a face-to-face meeting, and I'll try and make it, convenient. And it's not an in-depth meeting. It's just a chance to sit and look at someone eye to eye and go through what's on their resume, what they want to talk about. And I'll tell you one of the things I look for is by that time, and hopefully earlier, the candidate should know all about me and my company. Mm-hmm. Anybody that comes into an interview and says, "What do you guys do now?" No, that's not right. So the candidate really, has to tailor the resume, and also have specific intention for that company. So learn all you can. And frankly, today you can learn everything about everybody in 5 minutes, right?
Right.
You can learn about the, you know, the financial history of the company. You can learn who the key players are, what markets they participate in, who their competitors are, what the general technology trends are in that area. So, you know, maybe that's a little deep, but you get the idea, right?
Yeah,
It's doing your homework.
there's no excuse for showing up unprepared. It wasn't like, you know, I got out of college in the 80s where you had to hustle to find that research. Today it's like there's no, it's so easy. It's right at your fingertips.
Yeah, it's criminal, and it's a red flag, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's things that you can ask and not ask due to law, but employers want to know if you're married or not. They want to know anything else that's probably not in the resume. If you can help them better understand any nuances to your life that are not legitimately legal to ask, such as your age and whatnot. They always appreciate hearing that because they can't ask that stuff. I'd like to know if he's the sole breadwinner, if he's married, and that his spouse or her spouse would support them, whether they work or not, and what their age is too. Because, you know, I'm consciously trying to keep a demographic profile age-wise in my company so we don't get top-heavy with 50-year-old plus bald guys. You know,
Yeah.
we need to, and we're in a vibrant young industry. And, you know, that's what the companies that we represent want to see. They like the young guys. You know, by young, I mean, you know, 20s, 30s. So.
It's so helpful for people to hear from the guy actually on the other side of the table doing the interviewing and how you're evaluating and what you like to look for. Would it be okay, Peter, if I include like your LinkedIn
Sure.
address in here in case anyone wants to reach you directly? You look, you know, for some, you know, personal questions or something.
No problem at all.
That would be great. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right.